Ladies and gentlemen, there are few greater pleasures in life than booting up a game on chess.com, trying your best, finishing the game, winning, of course, and hitting game review and receiving a high accuracy score. Every single one of us lives for these moments. Well, the other day I played a chess game where I literally played a perfect game of chess. 100%. I also played one of the nastiest moves I've ever played in my life. And on top of that, I did all of this using one of my own courses against a very strong title player. So in this video, I am going to show you the game, break it down for you. You'll learn a couple of things. Hopefully you ooh and ah. And then I'll show you the course as well in case you want to play in a similar way and beat some strong players. That's all I have to say. Short introduction. Here we go. I was with the black pieces. I was playing a tournament on chess.com, and I was playing against Timurist. At the time, I didn't know who I was playing because, in case you don't know, I like to install an extension which actually hides who I'm playing against. So my opponent started with the move e4, and I played d5. This has been my favorite opening against e4 in blitz chess for some time. The Scandinavian is very nice. It forces the issue very quickly. I used to play the Caro-Kann, which supports the d-pawn with a pawn, but d5 is an amazing opening for intermediate and even beginner players, but you do have to be a little bit careful because your queen does come out. Now, the nice thing about the Scandinavian is that you can predict your opponent's moves very early. Pawn takes d5 happens in some 80% of games, and then in this position, white's next move, knight c3, also happens in like 80% of games, which, again, you'll see that if you go through the Scandinavian course. Queen to a5, and again, I'll show you that at a moment here in a few moves. Now, the most popular move for white is the move d4. White takes the center and wants to develop the knight, wants to develop the bishop, wants to develop the other bishop. I played knight to f6. I have faced all of this before, right? I've played these games before. The bishop is going to come out, knight f3, and now we have an important moment. Here we have what's called a crossroads. Black here can develop the bishop to f5 or to g4. Going to g4 is a little bit more direct because you're doing what's called pinning the knight to the queen. And you, in many lines, actually take the knight because you don't want white to have this knight jumping into the middle. White's best plan here involves jumping into the middle, trying to come to the e5 square or put the bishop on the e5, on the c4 square, and target the position. But I went bishop f5. And again, as you can see from the time management, still in my opening. My opponent now plays the move bishop c4. So far, so good. And here I play the move e6. So black now has multiple options. And one of the key ideas of the Scandinavian is that the opponent will try to kick out this queen because they think that the queen is annoying. And that's what they did right now. And I went bishop to b4. Now, before I proceed any further, I would like to just very quickly show you, this is quite literally chapter 1 of my Scandinavian course on Chessly. e4, d5, pawn takes, right? Knight c3, queen a5. This is the same line, bishop to d2 and bishop to b4. The exact same position that you see in one in the other. Right? And this is like practical application of your openings, which is very nice. It's very nice to do that. Now you're going to see on Chessly, a3 here targets the bishop, and then I trade, and then I drop my queen back, and then we get this position where I have a knight on c6, a queen on b6, and white has castled, and my king is in the middle of the board. Now, more on that later, because what we're about to get in the game is exactly that. Except there is one twist. There is one twist. My opponent castled first. Right? We saw a position where white went pawn to a3. Right? But they didn't do that right away. So I did what's called setting a trap. You see here, the most natural move by far for black is to castle, and it very well could be the best move. But I love to play like this, and this is going to be a high-level tip for some of you watching. If you're watching this as a beginner, it will be a little bit harder to apply this in your games. But there is a trap I like to set here in my opening. And in this position, I like to think for a little bit, about 7-8 seconds, and I like to play knight c6. And what I do with this process is I don't castle and I indicate to my opponent I'm thinking on my own. So this move is just something that I invented. And so what ends up happening here is my opponents play the move pawn to a3. I very quickly take the knight. We have the position from the course, takes, and now I hesitate. You say, why? Why are you hesitating? Your queen is hanging. Well, I hesitate here because I want to show my opponent a level of anxiety, trepidation for the fact that they have the move pawn to d5. You see, a move ago, I could have gotten my king out of the middle, but I didn't. And now I show my opponent, oh man, they're going to open up the center with my king here. I'm in a lot of danger. So I hesitate, even though I only have one good move. So I'm setting the trap that I'm thinking about my move, and I'm resenting that I have to play this move. And when I went here, within 0.6 seconds, my opponent fell straight into the trap and played the move d5, which, as you can see from the evaluation bar, is not a good move, even though it looks like you're going to rip open the position. Fun fact, funny story that you should know is that in the course, this is literally covered. This exact trap is covered because black can castle. And I have set this trap on so many people. I have probably had this trap some 30 times. A lot of people fall into this trap because it just looks really good. And suddenly you castle your king and the pawn is pinned to the queen and the pawn is under attack 3 different times. Now, a lot of people here with white, they play bishop takes f6. They try to take this, get rid of the pressure, but it's not a particularly good move. It weakens this. I have had some games where my opponent plays knight to d4, and then I end up taking the pawn. I've had games where my opponent sacks the queen. Oh, I have legal moves on. That's pretty funny. I was recording something else. So, they sack the queen. I've had all sorts of games. Actually, I've lost some games where people sack their queen. But anyway, in this game, my opponent played the move bishop d4. So now I'm on my own, right? I've never seen the move bishop d4. So we're out of the opening course. The opening course served us well. It got us an advantage, which is exactly what you want from your opening. I'll drop the link to the Scandinavian course if you'd like it. You can always sign up for a free trial. We have a summer challenge going on right now. Now, forget about that. We're not going to talk about the course anymore. My opponent goes bishop d4. So how did I play a 100% accuracy game from here? Well, my knight is hanging, my queen's hanging, right? So I thought that looks like the most natural move. And then I'm going to take the pawn on d5. So that's what I did. I thought for 6 seconds, I took the bishop. And if the knight had taken here, targeting my bishop, I don't know. I probably would have moved the bishop somewhere. Because if I take in on d5, the knight would take my bishop, right? So I just have to be a little bit careful. But my opponent took with the queen. And I was like, okay, I can take with the queen, of course. But why would I help improve white's position? I don't want white's knight to come into the middle. And what a lot of intermediate and advanced players as well, actually, are not very good at is keeping the tension. Just keep the tension, right? In this position, I'm like, I can play pawn takes d5. I can play knight takes d5. I think here they're all kind of balanced. So I took with the knight. I took with the knight because I didn't want to remove my structure. That way, I didn't want to weaken my bishop. And I kind of wanted to bait my opponent into taking this pawn. It's like, it looks like a pawn that was sort of lost in all of this. And by taking this pawn, and particularly when you have castled on opposite sides, taking a pawn like this could be extremely dangerous for your opponent, as you will launch an attack very, very quickly. So my opponent played queen takes g7. And I figured, okay, both my pawns are under target. That one's obviously capturable. So at first, what I wanted to do is I wanted to play bishop to g6. I wanted to retreat, defend both, and not lose all my pawns. There is a chance here you lose all your pawns. Then I realized if I go here and my opponent takes my pawn, what if I just keep chasing the queen? And I have news for you. That queen doesn't have a square. The only square is queen to h5, at which point I play bishop here, defended by that rook, and I'm attacking both the queen and the knight. So here you needed to calculate a little sequence where at the end of it, you're just simply winning material. You have a fork, and there's no way for the opponent to defend the position against the attack. And so I went rook g8. I spent a little bit of time. I played the move rook g8. Now my opponent can play queen h6, queen e5, can come back and offer a trade. Opponent did, in fact, spend a little bit of time here, play the move queen to d4. So again, what now, right? What now? What do we play from this position? Well, I was thinking, and I was like, well, number one, this is just a free pawn. Like, just in case, right? Number two, I was thinking rook to g4, which would be a skewer of the queen and the bishop. I also thought about queen takes and then rook g4. That doesn't really work because the knight is going to take here. And by the way, I'm not even up any material. It's a completely equal position, except black happens to be minus 4.5. So if you'd like to follow along here and see how to actually win this thing, you can. I played a very direct move. My queen is protected. And I have this. So why don't I play bishop h3? Simple. Put pressure on the pinned piece. PP on the PP. G2's hanging. I'm going to take it with a check. The white king is going to be falling apart. And I didn't know I was -5, but I did know that I was obviously winning. And I figured my opponent here would play the move g3, and I would simply take. They cannot move the knight because the queen is hanging. Okay, so very obviously they take the queen. And here, folks, is where I played one of the cooler moves of my life. You look at this position, you go, well, queen's hanging. 3 different ways, right? Knight takes. I got to recapture the queen. You say, no. Before we do that, now we throw in a check, obviously. Yeah. We take rook takes, king moves, then we take the queen. We have a 1-pawn advantage. White's king is very weak. Probably we just win the game. Also, yeah. But sometimes you get a moment in a chess game to elevate yourself, to enhance yours, to go to a whole nother level. And I was like, can I play bishop takes g2? It's not a check. The queen just stands there. I leave a full queen on the board. But my threat is bishop takes f3, checkmate. The only thing you look at for a move like bishop takes g2 is, does my opponent have a check with this queen? Can the queen escape somehow? And the answer is no. There is no check. Everything is protected, which is crazy. Queen a7 doesn't work. That's mate. So I played bishop takes g2. This is an unbelievable move. Unbelievable move. And when I checked game review after the game and it told me that bishop takes g2 was the top computer move, I was like, now I have to make a video to show you what you can do if you know your openings and you know the ideas. Bishop takes g2, bishop takes f3 is checkmate. Now, to my opponent's credit, he played a great move. Played knight to g5. When this move landed, I panicked for a second because I actually totally didn't see this move. The point is the knight runs away from danger. And if you take the queen now, which you can, your bishop's under attack. Like you're losing this whole checkmating idea. But if you take the knight like this, which looks reasonable, the f knight is gone, which means the f pawn can move, which means f4 is possible. And suddenly the king is running away and the rook is hanging. And suddenly, if you do this wrong by accident, which, hopefully you don't have any advantage anymore. So you have to capture all the right pieces. And that's when I realized, now I take the queen. And now in this sad little position for white, the rook is hanging, the knight is hanging, and the bishop is hanging. 3 different pieces are all hanging. And there is no way for white to make a move that seizes back any control of time. There's no check, there's no capture, there's no anything. Something will be lost. My opponent took my bishop, I took with check, and white resigned. White resigned because on the next move I'm taking the bishop, and I will have an extra knight, an extra pawn. At the intermediate level, you should not resign in this position with white, okay? You should obviously keep going, and you never know what's going to happen. That was the game. I was so happy when I clicked the game review and it gave me a 99.6, a 99.5, whatever depth you run it on. I played a perfect game of chess. I played my opening exactly the way the opening is supposed to be played, and when my opponent played something I was not aware of any longer from my course, I handled the transition beautifully. I have played this little trap with pawn to d5 and long castle several times. I've had many games go pawn takes, CB, and then I play like queen takes b7, and then they take, and then, you know, I put my bishop here or something like this, and we get to this position. And, you know, sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. I've had games go knight to d4, and then I have to play knight takes d5, you know, knight f5. Knight c3, some crazy game. I've never had somebody play bishop d4, but I was so happy to have navigated this pawn and then this position and bishop h3. I mean, I'm going to be beaming about bishop takes g2 for quite some time. The queen is just hanging here by 3 different pieces, and it can walk into the position, and there's just not enough time. So that's that. That's that. And I wouldn't have done it without my very own course. I was thrilled about that. Was thrilled to put this on. And, you know, like I said in the beginning of the video, there are very few things nicer than playing a chess game and getting a 99.5%. Scandinavian is a good opening. Add it to your toolbox if you haven't already. And sometimes I just have to share some of my games with all of you. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.